Yesterday, I had a conversation with my mother, and we were talking about the 80s because I was born in 84. And after talking to her, I realized the 80s may have been the best era in the history of history. 5 things about the 80s that makes the 80s the best decade ever. Number 1, the music. Now, if you're looking for a time where race didn't matter, where you was from didn't matter, go back to the 80s. You had the black boys from the projects rocking Motley Crue and AC/DC. You had the white boys in the suburbs rocking Run DMC and stepping in their Adidas. You had the Sheila E's with the big hair. You had Madonna being sexually open. You had Michael Jackson moonwalking and Billie Jeaning. The 80s seemed like the best era for music. If you want to hear one of the best R&B singers of all time sing a cappella with no auto-tune and studio music, YouTube Marvin Gaye a cappella, come back to this video and say thank you, Josh. You welcome. Uncle Luke and 2 Live Crew changed the music game. All that twerking, all that WAP, all that Trina, all that Trick Daddy, all that Lil' Kim, that sexualized rap music. If it wasn't for Uncle Luke, it wouldn't be no bending over and busting it wide open. Bust it wide open, bust it wide open. Hey, bust it. Okay. Number 2, drugs. I'm serious. Now, this had to be one of the weirdest things that me and my mother talk about. The drugs in the 80s were so recreational that nobody judged you. Now today's people don't even know how to take drugs responsibly. If you on drugs, you look like you're on drugs. You pop Miley or pills, we can kind of look at you and tell he on Miley, he on pills, probably a little bit of ecstasy. Somebody sprinkled cocaine on his blunt. In the 80s, the CEO of a company that you talk to will take a bump right in front of you. So listen, now we're gonna have to invest $50 million in those stocks, and we're gonna be fine. Everybody smoke weed. Everybody bump the line or 2 of cocaine. Now I ain't saying that that's okay to just be walking around in a Chuck E. Cheese. You know what I'm saying? Just playing with your kids. All right, who next? Who want to play on the basketball game? Who next? I ain't saying that I'm encouraging that. What I am saying is in the 80s, everybody was free from the judgment. Now, when somebody took the cocaine, added some baking soda, threw it in a pot with a little bit of water, and created crack rocks, that's when the 80s lost me. Nah, we ain't invent crack. Y'all did that. Number 3, sports. There was no social media. There was no participation medals. There was no participation trophies. There was no, I'm going to win, then you going to win. We going to be friends. It was none of that. Basketball, you come to the hole, you might not make it home. In football, we talking about face masks and mouthpieces get knocked out. They got to drag you. Then your mama going to tell you, get back in there. Baseball, steroids was being used, and we enjoyed it because we wanted to see home runs get hit 500 or 600 feet away. In the 80s, when hockey players was like the rock stars and the NASCAR drivers could get out after they win a race, tongue kiss their wife right down national TV and nobody say nothing. Nowadays, the gamers are the athletes. I ain't taking nothing away from a gamer, but I don't see no gamer going to the hole and dunking on somebody and stand them over. I see you dunking on me in NBA 2K and talking like you did it in real life. The 80s was the most physical decade in sports, and it can't be debated. Number 4, TV and movies. If you take away CGI from movies, what do you got? Nothing. You got this video with no CGI. In the 80s, that's when writers had the right. That's when movies had to explain something. There's not a person on this earth that can't tell me they can go look at the Goonies right now. Hey, you guys! And not get excited. The 80s gave us Ghostbusters. The 80s gave us Alf. The 80s gave us Lethal Weapon. The 80s gave us Bruce Leroy and Shonuff. Who's the master? Shogun. The 80s gave us Bill Cosby going through a telephone choking his daughter's boyfriend, his ghost dad. The 80s gave us Back to the Future. The 80s were the best for TV and music. And everything we see today is kind of being remade from the 80s, man. Pay attention. Pay attention, people. And number 5, the 80s gave us Josh Pray. Without me being born in the 80s, I wouldn't be able to be on the internet right now giving y'all this good, positive energy. Erasing the racial divide. Talking about men and women, big and small, short and tall. Talking about country to country. Throwing out words that y'all don't even know. Like societal inflammation. Go Google it. If it's not a word, I'm going to get it on a t-shirt. It's going to be a word and y'all going to buy it. I am from the 80s, and that was why I was able to bring you this video today. If I missed anything from the 80s, please put it in the comments. If you feel like the 90s were the best, tell me why and I might talk about it. But as of now, the 80s was the crack rock era. And I'm not talking about like crack rock, like smoking crack rock. I'm talking about like it rocked the cracks at the, you know what I am talking about, smoking crack rock. I'm sorry.